Thanks, Sarah. I'm now joined by Verona Murphy, Independent TD. Thanks for being here. You heard the Minister there. Basically, the government felt that with the NEFID modelling was given the possibility of 2,000 deaths, they had no option but to delay indoor dining. Do you support that?
I think what's abundantly clear from what we've heard today and just now from the Minister is that government are not in control of this virus. But NEFID are clearly and firmly in control of government. I think it's imperative, it's of an extreme urgent nature now, that NEFID's modelling is subject to an international peer review.
So can I just clarify that? If NEFID had given you that advice and you were in government, you would not have accepted it and you would have gone ahead and allowed indoor dining reopen on July the 5th?
If I was in government, I would have complied with my request as far back as February of this year that government put a reopening plan in place that would include measures.
So you wouldn't have delayed the reopening?
We shouldn't have to. The problem here is that we don't and haven't resourced a proper mechanism of test, trace and isolate. It collapsed as far back as last December. We have no evidence that that's in place. We don't know how many vaccinators we have. We don't know whether we have a newly resourced ICU capacity, simply because the cyber attack, which was also an under-resourced system in the HSE, doesn't allow a politician to access those figures anymore. So it very much suits the NEFID agenda to keep us in the dark, to give government advice that seems to be completely off the Richter scale.
That's a very serious allegation. What is the NEFID agenda?
Who knows at this stage? It certainly is not in line with the government's thoughts on running
a conspiracy theory. I mean, they would say they're just giving the public health advice. The modelling that they have worked on.
Based on what? We don't have science behind it. We don't know what the projections are coming from today. We have no idea. We haven't been told.
The modelers are scientists.
But they haven't. But from where? There's been no peer review. No scientific medical advice is published without peer review.
But the last time we ignored NEFID's advice, we ended up in the nightmare that was Christmas.
The last time we ignored NEFID's advice, we still, as a government, didn't put the measures in place that assisted.
The spectre of Christmas remains.
But we hadn't a test, trace and isolate system fit for purpose. We don't know if we have that now, because we can't get the figures, Miriam. The reality is that at this stage, we don't and haven't tested the figures that have come from NEFID at any stage. We don't know whether we're getting true figures of what we're seeing today as COVID cases. We don't know if the COVID deaths are from COVID or with COVID. There's too many questions here to avoid international scrutiny.
Do you not believe, Verona Murphy, that we are getting clear, honest, straight figures? Is that what you're suggesting?
I can't believe it because there's too many contrary views from eminent medics who don't agree either, but they're being silenced, they're not being heard, and at the end of the day it comes down to the fact that we do not have systems in place other than lockdown. Government seems to have put all their eggs in one basket in relation to vaccination. Now we're being told that that vaccination is going to be used as almost it's a backdoor to insisting that people are vaccinated.
It's not a very dangerous path to go down and say we don't trust. As an elected deputy, you don't trust the figures coming from NEFID.
I didn't say I didn't trust the figures. I said they should be reviewed. We should have a peer review so as that we can clearly see, because we are outliers.
You wouldn't review them if you thought they were right.
There's nobody would take anything for granted nowadays. Everything should be reviewed. A peer review is the ultimate, not just to justify or to trust NEFID, but to allow us to see whether they're modelling, because obviously we are the outliers in Europe. We have the longest lockdown in Europe. We don't have the figures that transpired.
What about vaccine passes? Do you support them?
Particularly no. I think the reality is that we were told at the very outset that vaccinations wouldn't be mandatory. I believe, yes, there should have been during lockdown for vaccinations.
They're still not mandatory.
They're still not mandatory. That's what I mean. I don't think that people should be subjected to discrimination because they haven't been vaccinated. They've been given a choice. If that choice is to be not to be vaccinated, why should they be penalised? It's very legally dubious, it's challenging for all businesses, and a very simple methodology that could have been in place by government was antigen testing. As far back as this time last year, other countries in the EU were actually instituting that.
Appreciate you coming in tonight.
Thank you.
Sarah.
Well, that is all we have time for this evening. Prime Time will be back on Thursday when we'll have a report from RTE Investigates, which examines why, despite the lessons of the first wave of COVID, some nursing homes suffered devastating consequences when the third wave struck.
Standing there, looking in the window, watching them die.
Why was the death rate so high?
Hopefully we'll get answers. I haven't really grieved properly.
We'll hear from whistleblowers and from families who are calling on government to set up a public inquiry into the deaths of their loved ones. For now though, from everyone on the team, good night.